Hey, it's Dr. Justin Marcagiani here. Hope everyone is having a phenomenal day. I am outside of my office today getting a little construction done. So I got my little mobile office set up here going. Excited to chat today about hot flashes. Evan, how you doing today?
Hey man, happy Monday to you. I'm doing pretty well. I got back from the chiropractor this morning. They're working on my neck, so hopefully they're going to be a miracle worker. I wish I could come see you, but I'd have to drive kind of far.
Totally. I get it. Yeah, fingers crossed that they figured out kind of where the issue is in the spine and they're working on it. So that's really good. Excellent. So wanted to chat about hot flashes. So first off, hot flashes tend to happen as the follicles in the ovary, go down and you go into what's called menopause. So average age of menopause is 48 to 51. And typically what happens, you only have a set amount of follicles in the ovaries that eventually turn into eggs, right? And those, responsible for a significant amount of estradiol that's produced throughout the month. So we have like the first couple days. So the start of the cycles is basically going to be when you have your period. And then you're going to have FSH starting to creep up, which is your follicle stimulating hormone. So it's stimulating the follicle to grow. As the follicle grows, it spits out estrogen. And estrogen kind of maxes out in your cycle at around day 12, 13, where then progesterone starts to come up because LH is increasing right after FSH increases. So FSH kind of whips the follicle makes some estradiol. Estradiol then helps the follicle also grow and mature. And then right around day 12, 13, right before ovulation, LH is already going up in the background and progesterone starts to go up. So you kind of have this like, you bleed, okay? Then you have FSH kind of creeping up like this, and then estrogen kind of goes up like this. And then right around day 12 or 13, LH is already creeping up, then progesterone starts to go up. And then this is where the ovulation starts, right in this area, right between day 13 and 15 or so. And then right after that, progesterone continues to go, 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 go. And then at some point, it either drops out if there's no egg that's fertilized, right? So the sperm comes in, it hits the egg, it fertilizes, and that progesterone kind of keeps going, and it's supported by human chorionic gonadotropin, HCG, or there's no the egg isn't fertilized, and then you have a period, and it all starts over again. So this is important. So as the follicles you have a set amount of follicles. As the follicles start to drop, then you don't have that estradiol output, and then you start to go into menopause. And estriol now becomes that primary hormone. And this is important because estriol can be made from DHEA. And DHEA is a precursor hormone that comes from your adrenal gland. So if you're really stressed, if you're in a situation where you've been under a lot of stress and your adrenals are in a tough position, you have a lot of blood sugar issues, a lot of cortisol dysregulation, your adrenals are going to take a lot of the brunt, and the DHEA will start to be depleted over time as your adrenals have dysfunction. And that lower DHEA will decrease that kind of stored capacity to buffer estrogen with estriol. So we have estradiol primarily when you're cycling. You have estriol more, it starts to become what you rely more on when you're menopausal. And then you have this other one in there in the background called estrone. So estrone, O-N-E, that's E1. Estradiol, di for two, that's E2 for short. And then estriol, or tri for three. So we have E1, E2, E3. So we get a window into all three of those estrogens, and E2 is more when you're cycling. E3 or estriol is more when you're menopausal. And then what happens over time is that FSH and LH signaling start to go up as the ovaries, as the follicles start to deplete. The LH and FSH start to go up and up and up and up and up. They're raising the volume. It's like having an alarm clock where if you don't hit the sleep button on it, the volume keeps going up and keeps going up and keeps going up. So that's kind of what's happening. And as that FSH and LH go up, they can have, especially the FSH, a lot of vasodilating effects, and that's what happens with a lot of these hot flashes.
Ah, okay. So you're saying that this process is going to happen no matter what, but you're saying to what extreme may be determined by the adrenal status?
That has a big, big effect. Absolutely.
Okay, so if a woman is having, let's say she's having a good healthy lifestyle, she's got stabilized blood sugar, she's going to bed on time, maybe she's taking some adaptogenic herbs, you're saying she's still going to go into menopause and likely have symptoms of that, but you're saying she may have minimal to no hot flashes versus a woman who has bad blood sugar balance, eating processed carbohydrates and sugars, maybe has synthetic estrogens from her environment, eating out of
Correct.
plastic. she's going to have more issue.
Yeah, because we're going to have more fluctuations of cortisol to help curb the inflammation, to curb the blood sugar swings. And that's going to then put stress on our progesterone. And it's also going to put stress on our DHEA. Remember, the more stressed the adrenals are, DHEA output can decrease. And then the more stressed our cortisol is, the more cortisol can pull from progesterone. So then we can start to have these kind of estrogen dominant swings where progesterone starts to drop a little bit relative to estrogen, and we can start to have some of these. We get starting to get pushed more into estrogen dominance, where we can start to see more cramping, more bloating, increased bleeding or hemorrhagia, those kind of things. And then, of course, if we don't have enough DHEA from adrenal stress, DHEA is going to buffer that estriol more as well. And that's important for some of these issues too. So we got to get to the root cause, right? What's the underlying cause of the physiology to move in that direction? Stress, diet, infections, not enough fat and cholesterol. Remember, hormones are made from healthy cholesterol and fat. So I've seen lots of women that were the victims of the 80s and 90s in this low fat, low cholesterol era. And a lot of them are going into menopause over the last 10 years. And they don't have just a lot of good building blocks even there because of all of their poor dietary stressors.
What about if they were on a statin medication?
Well, statin will definitely have an effect because that's going to decrease cholesterol internally. Remember, most of your cholesterol is made in your body. So we take something via your diet, which has a lot of fat-soluble vitamins, but then we also make a lot too. So if we take a statin, which is an HMG-CoA reductase inhibitor, that stands for hemomethylglutarate-CoA reductase. And if you block that enzyme, you don't make statins. But if you block that enzyme, this pathway called the mevalonic acid pathway, and that pathway is also responsible for internal CoQ10 production. And then if you start mugging that pathway, then you're going to have less CoQ10 to run your mitochondria and generate ATP, which is really important. So then you can start to have more energy issues and you start to have more mitochondrial dysfunction. And then it's common with that to have more pain, to have less energy, cognitive issues, mood issues, chronic muscle soreness, rhabdomyolysis, those kind of things can happen with those kind of stressors.
So can we talk about progesterone a bit? I mean, you look at like T.S. Wiley in her book Lights Out. You look at a lot of people talking about hormones, menopause. Progesterone always comes up in conversation, and people say, "Oh, it's natural. Oh, it's bioidentical." I mean, is it destiny for these women to have to end up on progesterone, or is this just a Band-Aid?
So there's a couple strategies. Like number one, if they're perimenopausal, meaning they're like in their late 40s, early 50s, and they're starting to transition to menopause, we'll use progesterone in a cyclical augmentation fashion, certain times of the month, to help kind of gently nudge an easier transition into menopause. That can be really helpful. And we try to use lower levels, like if here's our physiological level of progesterone, we're trying to use lower levels and just trying to fill in the gaps, if you will.
Okay.
So it's
So
kind of
that's like
like you got a
20
rough
milligrams.
table. We're just trying to use a little sandpaper just to fill in the gaps, smooth everything out, just to nudge up or nudge down the highs or lows. That can be helpful. And then your question was, oh yeah,
Is it
now
destiny?
with the T.S. Wiley method, that's different because she's basically trying to get menopausal women to cycle again, and you can do that too. I mean, a lot of women that are menopausal are like, woohoo, like no more periods, like they're happy about that. So then we just will supplement a little bit of progesterone and estrogen throughout the month at a very low level, just to curb out some of the hot flashes, and we keep them kind of in the upper physiological end of the range for menopausal women, mid to lower physiological end of the range for cycling women. And we just kind of give it every day. We're not cycling it, where T.S. Wiley would probably do like an estrogen in the first half of the cycle, a progesterone in the last half of the cycle. And I think she times it up according to the lunar phase. So typically full moon equals fertility. So that's like day 14 or so. So you'd start your progesterone on the full moon, and then you'd stop it on the new moon, and then start your estrogen the following day or so, and for 12 days. So that's kind of how TS would do it. She would do like a progesterone for 2 weeks, lunar cycle, unless we have a calendar on when your normal cycle was, and we could just plug in those dates if it was continuous. So progesterone day 14 to 28, full moon to new moon, wait a day or so, estrogen day 2 to 12, stop allow a couple of days in there for ovulation, and then she would typically, even though there's no egg, right? We're just trying to mimic normal physiology, and then throw maybe a little bit of DHEA or testosterone in the background as well. We like to use DHEA over that because just it's a building block to more hormones. Does that make sense?
You're saying DHEA is a preference over using testosterone. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, just because it has more, it can go more directions,
Yes,
you will.
understood.
And again, testosterone can work. If a woman has low testosterone, it can really help. But my concern is just to fix the underlying issue and try to give more building block precursor hormones. Building block hormones are here and they can go to lots of different things. End stage hormones are down here. Now, sometimes that's good. It can be helpful because it can have a more of a therapeutic effect. And we'll use it with progesterone. We'll even use a little bit of estriol as well from time to time.
Okay, so take the conversation in a different direction if you would like. But a question that I have that many others probably have is how would you compare and contrast something like a progesterone cream versus some of these herbs that are commonly recommended that we use for menopausal symptoms, like progesterone cream versus, say, Vitex or Chase Tree versus, say, red clover or American ginseng, maca, things like that?
Yeah, so there are herbs that can help some of the FSH and LH levels to calm them down. They can also help the feedback. They can also improve follicle health as well, which can help with internal hormones. They help with the receptor sites. They can kind of down regulate or up regulate the receptor sites. So imagine like a lock. Sometimes you have a lock in your house or in your mailbox and you try to put the key in and you got to really jiggle it around to get it in. The keyhole, the receptor site's kind of not quite working properly. It's either more sensitive or more dull, harder to get the key in, or too easy or hard to turn, right? So think of some of these herbs. It really helps clean out the receptor sites, make the receptor site work better. Think of that as, getting a better, keyhole for the key to work. And then some we may actually give a little bit of hormone as well to help. That can make a big difference. So we'll give maybe a little bit of progesterone or estrogen, and we'll time that up accordingly. That can make a big difference. And like you mentioned, some of the progesterone herbs will be like chaste tree or shepherd's purse. I'm a big fan of the specific phenotypes of maca. I give a menopausal formula and a cycling formula that I use that have different phenotypes of maca that work well. If you go to justinhealth.com/shop and you click on the female hormones category, you can see some of those. But with female hormone issues, you really want to see a trained functional medicine doctor that can do specific testing to see where you're at. And it can be tricky. And a lot of times people, especially women, they don't, or a lot of even medical doctors, they don't understand how the gut interplays with the hormones. So they come in there and they're just giving hormones, or they're not even looking at the adrenals or not looking at the gut, and they have really poor absorption of these important amino acids and minerals and essential vitamins. And they need these nutrients to actually have good hormonal output on their own, and they're just supplementing that with extra hormones. We really want to make sure we're looking at the gut, and the gut is so overlooked when it comes to hormonal issues.
Absolutely. Well, I'll add on to that. And when we're looking at the marker on the stool test, that beta glucuronidase marker, we'll see that people are recirculating toxins and hormones. And so this may be why they actually could be overdosing on their hormones. If their doctor keeps bumping up and bumping up their hormones, if they have like a recirculating problem, that's not good. The liver plays into this too. You mentioned the gut bugs affecting absorption. We know too, if you're filtering out bugs all the time, all these different toxins bacteria are creating, isn't that adding liver stress, which is then creating even a bigger cascade of hormonal symptoms?
100%. Yep. So we want to get to the root issue. We got a great question in here from Susan who wrote, "What's the best supplement to take for surgical induced menopause? I had hysterectomy 18 years ago. I'm now 45. I have breast cancer in all female immediate family members." So a couple of things. I'd want to know, why did you have your hysterectomy? What was the cause of it? Was there an endometriosis? Were there fibroids? Were there ovarian cysts? I want to know the underlying issue. Okay, that's number one. Number two, I mean, your family members may have a predisposition, but you'd want to really look at estrogen dominance. I mean, the big thing is a lot of these estrogen sensitive cancers. Now, if you don't have a cancer, right, that's good. You may do really well with some specific herbs and a little bit of progesterone, because progesterone tends to antagonize estrogen. And even people that have hormone sensitive cancers, you'd want to check with your oncologist and say, hey, is my cancer estrogen sensitive or not? And then I would look at potentially using a small palliative level of progesterone, but just confirm with your oncologist first to make sure your cancer is not progesterone sensitive. Most are just estrogen sensitive if it's breast induced. So you'd really want to get some info on that. And I want to understand the root cause of why you had a hysterectomy. Fibroids, um, adenomyosis, ovarian cyst, all those type of things. I want to understand what the root issue, because almost all the time, those underlying pathological situations tend to be induced from estrogen dominance. So we can work on the root cause because the root cause is still there, just the tissue that was being destroyed is being cut out. So the underlying imbalance that caused everything is still there, and something else will now happen. That makes sense?
It makes perfect sense. Yeah, my mom, I don't think she had really any issues. I don't remember. Maybe it was like cramping or something, but she got a hysterectomy at like 38. Full hysterectomy. They took out the uterus as well.
Yeah. So Susan wrote, and I had endometriosis. So there's a couple of strategies. You want to work with a good functional medicine doctor. You want to get your hormones looked at. If you are on the like, if you don't have cancer, then I would just lean more to progesterone and specific herbal support to help. You got to get your adrenals looked at. You got to work with someone that can test you and see where your hormone profile is at. And then it's up to you. I mean, there may be some preventative cancer markers you can look at, like the CA125 antigen for various cancers. And you can kind of look at some of those markers preventatively just to see how you're doing in those areas. That may give you more, let's just say, peace of mind that you're on the right track. And then, of course, if you have a full hysterectomy, the question is, do you still have your ovaries, or was it a partial and your uterus was the only thing removed? So if your ovaries are gone, you really want to work on supporting the hormones too. Any
So let me
questions
ask
there?
you this. Let me go a little further with that. So if you have a full hysterectomy, ovaries, uterus, everything's gone, can you out supplement your way out of this with just using herbs, or are you suspecting there's got to be some hormone support added in as
Yeah,
well?
yeah, you're going to need some hormone support. The question is, if there's underlying cancer in the background, we got to be really careful with estrogen potentially, and we can just confirm with the oncologist. A lot of times that can be tested. Typically, progesterone tends to be good. Ask your oncologist though. And then if there's no cancer issues, that definitely we can use a little bit of estriol and progesterone, and we can use some specific herbs to help modulate those receptor sites, and that can make a big difference. Kind of get that keyhole to work a little bit smoother so that key can turn better and fit better.
That makes sense. Well, because I get this question a lot from women. It's like, well, am I going to have to be on this bioidentical progesterone forever? Or can I end up taking, say, maca instead and get off progesterone?
The stronger your adrenals are, yes, but you may have to be on it for a period of time to get stable.
Okay.
And then from there, as the adrenals get stronger, and if you're managing stress well, and you have your sugars under control, and your diet's really good, nutrient dense, you have good blood sugar stability, you're eating and digesting good proteins and fats, your detoxification system's working. Remember, gut dysbiosis can increase an enzyme called beta glucuronidase, which can uncleave conjugated estrogens, meaning estrogens that are put in a straitjacket, they're being escorted out of the body, and then this enzyme comes in, it unzips that straitjacket and allows that estrogen to go back into circulation. So a lot of women and doctors don't understand that gut dysbiosis can affect your body's ability to get hormones removed, and that can be another driving factor of estrogen dominance, which is gut issues or gut
Yeah, and
dysbiosis or
yeah,
SIBO.
and this all could have started because a woman had, say, a urinary tract infection and got pumped full of antibiotics. We killed off all the good bacteria in the gut. Candida moved into the neighborhood. Maybe some dysbiotic flora moved in. Like we see a lot of Clostridia infections. And then you maybe go to a gastro doc. Maybe they pump you full of more antibiotics because they're trying to kill H. pylori, or maybe they're trying to kill C. diff. And then you get even more dysbiosis. So if you've been through the ringer with your gut, if you're having constipation, diarrhea, stomach cramps, if you've got skin rashes, that could be a manifestation from your gut. If you've got dark circles under the eyes, that could be a symptoms going on in the gut. So this is why it's so foundational. It's amazing to me that even though, I am not a hormone expert like you, but I've still been able to resolve hormone issues just by resolving gut issues. And it's really fun to see how the body systems connect like that.
Absolutely. Someone writes in about antimicrobials for dogs. I'll answer this one question. You can do diatomaceous earth is really good. And you can also do mimosa pudica. That works really good as well. And you can also do some garlic too. Be careful if it can cause it. Sometimes it can cause an anemia, more in cats though. But I definitely recommend getting some really good probiotics in powder form afterwards. So Mosa pudica, you can do DE, diatomaceous earth. Those can be really helpful, ways to address that with animals.
Well, did you know the formula that you recommended I take several years ago, AP Mag? Remember that one?
They have a veterinary formula too. Yes.
The one for pets.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hard to get down. I mean, it just depends. Some animals, some owners have dogs or cats, typically dogs that will eat anything. My
Yeah.
dog, I could not get the AP mag down. Like that was
Ah,
just
okay.
impossible. But I can get powder probiotics in her. I can like mix a little bit of cod liver oil in her food. My pets, I have a powdered multi that I'll mix in with their food, a little bit of probiotics every now and then, and they'll do okay with it. So yeah, it just depends on how fastidious or difficult the animal is. Some dogs that you just put peanut butter on anything. I mean, it could be anything, and they'll just eat it. So you just got to do your best with that.
Yeah, pets can be a vector for infection. So if you all have pets, we're not saying that that is the cause, but I mean, we know a lot of pets, like random, adventures. I've taken my dog out, she'll go start drinking out of a random pond in the woods, and that could have Giardia in it. And then if I'm playing with her slobbery toy and then I pick my nose, I mean, I could have passed bugs to myself from the
Yeah,
dog.
and you could probably dilute some colloidal silver in water with them. I'd kind of dose it up according to weight, but I think anywhere between a teaspoon or so per 25 pounds, I think would be fine. But you can dose it out, and
Have you
then
discussed that with people? Like, how common do you think the dog is the vector for people
it,
when you see their
it,
infection?
I always ask, like, do you do a lot of kissy face with your dog? I mean, like, I kiss my dog a lot, but right on top of the head. So I'll,
Yeah.
I'll kiss her because that's the only. I do the math. I'm like, where can her tongue not reach? And I'm like, okay, right on top of her head. So I'll kiss her like right on top of the head, and that tends to be a pretty safe place to kiss her. But everywhere else, I try to stay clear. And we'll do, yeah, so she gets bathed once a week with some good stuff, and then we'll throw some DE in or some probiotics in. I have a good whole food multi powder, which has a whole bunch of like ground up glandulars, and then we'll throw that in her food, and that works pretty good.
Cool.
Excellent. Any other things you wanted to address here, Evan, regarding female hormones, regarding menopausal issues, hot flashes, anything else?
So there was an herb, and this is just like an off the cuff thing that I had read about and recommended to a couple females that have had great results with it. And I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's called, I probably can't even pronounce it correctly. It's called Peria. It's spelled Pueraria, and then Mirifica. Peria Mifrica. There's a brand who carries it called Nature's Answer. And I gave this to a female client, and she had tried everything for 15, 20 years, including bioidentical progesterones, et cetera. And this supplement, within 6 weeks, knocked out her hot flashes 98%. Did you
Interesting.
find it?
I'm not familiar with that herb. I mean, there's a lot of herbs that are out there, especially some of the more oriental ones that are like, they're just more, they're not like in the mainstream functional medicine world that can have a lot of estrogen metabolizing or estrogen receptor site modulation effects.
I believe that's what it's doing. Some women have said their breasts have grown, which is pretty weird because that makes it sound like it's an estrogenic type formula. So,
Yeah, it may just have, I mean, it just depends. Are these menopausal women?
yeah, these are menopausal.
I mean, there's a lot of receptor sites for estrogen in the breast tissue, and as women go into menopause, the breast can just get flatter, and that may help kind of bring some life back into the breast tissue because estrogen is important for like collagen integrity, right? And it also can attract some fluids, so that may bring the breast integrity back. But like with menopausal women, sometimes we'll use chaste tree or motherwort. A lot of times things like black cohosh, licorice, and some of the the specific maca blends. With PMS, we'll use a higher dose typically of chaste tree. And then a lot of times, like ginger or red root can be great because those really help with the lymph. So if we have like a lot of fluid retention from the hormones, that can really help kind of drain the fluid. And then sometimes we'll do like the dong quai can be really helpful. The motherwort can be really helpful. Those can work really well at modulating what's going on. And then of course, we want to work on the adrenals. The adrenals become a significant reserve site for a lot of the hormones. We want to make sure the adrenals are working very well.
What did you say for the lymphatic water retention? Which one was that one?
Yeah, red root's really good. And then ginger is also really good for that too. So if like you're a patient of mine listening, you can do the ginger tea is really good. You can always get some red root. I think they sell red root tea, and
Yeah.
you can get that. That's really good. You can also do, I think, just juice celery. Can also, I think Anthony Williams talks about that, the medical medium guy, about like celery juice can be really helpful with a lot of minerals in it, and that can be helpful for kind of fluid retention as well.
Cool. Excellent. I didn't have the questions pulled up, so I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to read off.
I think we hit all the major stuff. Like, we got a lot of questions coming in here. Some are off topic. So
Okay.
the best time for off topic questions, guys, is when I'm doing a live FAQ. Anything that's like pertain to the topic, I try to put it in the show notes at the top. Like, hey, this topic is menopause, or this topic is whatever, and then just try to keep your question pertinent to that. That way we can answer it so it stays on topic. But I'm going to be trying to do more FAQs. Just give us that thumbs up, guys. Give us a share. Make sure you subscribe. A lot of people listening are like, they listen to the recording. They're like, well, how do I get notifications? Subscribe, but also hit the bell. The bell's really important. Make sure on your YouTube application on your phone, like, make sure it pops up or gives you a little noise. So if I'm not sure when I'm going to do it, because my schedule is super busy. So if I have a half hour between patients, I'll jump on and do one of these chats. That way you get notified. And I'm trying to put these notifications up sooner, so then you can kind of put your questions in there the night before, and that way it can kind of queue up over the next night. So I
Cool.
hope that helps y'all. Anything else you wanted to let me know about?
If people want to reach out, they can get a hold of Justin at his site. It's Justin Health, so justinhealth.com, and you can schedule consults. Him and I both, we work with clients around the world. So, we've got clients in places you would not believe. And so we can send these lab testing kits that we're talking about through the mail. So especially for the Dutch test that Justin often runs on female patients, that is done using urine, and you can ship that through the mail, and it's not too bad. So feel free to reach out at justinhealth.com. And if you'd like to check out my site, you can do so, evanbrand.com. Either way, we don't care as long as you all get help. So if you can find somebody on your own that knows what they're talking about and you want to be seen locally, great. If you want us to help you, that's what we're here for. We love our jobs. We're super grateful for the opportunity to help you all.
Absolutely. Let me answer Tobias's question here. This is good. He wrote, my girlfriend's only 26 years old and she has hot flashes. Do you know if the supplements you spoke of will work for someone like that? So number one, that's significant. And it's really sad. I'm seeing more younger women who just their hormones are decimated. Like, this girl is 26, seems like she's already starting to go into almost like an early perimenopause kind of thing. And this is sad because the hormones should not be this out of flux, out of balance this early in someone's life. So Tobias, I would not be just jumping on herbs right now. I would get your girlfriend tested with some of these comprehensive functional medicine tests, see a good functional medicine doctor, and get that looked at. I mean, of course, like, the diet can be done right away. That's foundational stuff, because a lot of people, their diets are just so bad they don't have the good hormonal building blocks. But we need to get tested to see how out of balance or not your girlfriend's at. But we really want to work on supporting them with herbs and maybe even some bioidenticals to kind of jumpstart the hormones, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, there could be adrenal issues there. It could be
Yes.
thyroid, could be gut, could be all of it.
Yeah, it's really sad. I see lots of women's hormone levels on these tests, and they're just decimated. And I think it's just a combination of the foods getting worse. I think oral contraceptives are thrown around too much. I
Yeah.
think that can really have some negative effects. I mean, you can Google post-birth control syndrome, and that can have some negative consequences. I think a lot of women are also thrown on antidepressants because of a lot of their mood-related issues from the hormone imbalances. And then you can get tardive dyskinesia, which are other issues that happen from long-term antidepressant uses. So it's really tough for women out there because their cycles can cause so many symptoms that other drugs like antidepressants typically get used and birth control pills typically get used, which then have more side effects, which then creates more problems. And then if you're on these medications for 10, 20 years, it really can screw up your biochemistry and your physiology. And it can make you not the person you are. You're more moody, you're more irritable, your patience is less. You just don't get the same satisfaction out of dealing with life that you normally would if your hormones were more balanced and your biochem was more balanced. So we want to get to the root cause. And I always recommend try to use more like, a Paragard for birth control pill, like a copper IUD, or a diaphragm, or just something a little bit more natural in origin if you can, on the prophylactic pregnancy side. That way your hormones aren't getting mugged as much.
Yeah, well said. I was going to ask, what do you think happened to this girl if it was like a birth control thing? Because that was my first inkling. When I heard 26, I'm like, man, that's young.
Birth controls, I mean, just having really, really poor adrenal function.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's common. So,
Could have been trauma, right? Could have been trauma as
well,
part of this
that's going to
too.
put stress on the adrenals, of course.
Yeah.
You know, that's going to be big, especially, any sexual abuse trauma. You want to get that neutralized with EMDR, NLP, EFT kind of techniques, techniques that work on the subconscious. A lot of people have done talk therapy, but that just only addresses the conscious mind, which is still good to do. But you want to make sure the unconscious mind is addressed. I mean, this is why someone that comes back from war, they hear, a shot go off and they drop to the ground, right? Because that subconscious mind is so primed, you really got to release the trauma in the subconscious so these things don't happen because they're just like, you got a lot of programs going on in the background of your phone and you're like, boom, your phone's dead halfway through the day. Like, what's going on, right? It's kind of like that. People have that kind of, issue with their subconscious sucking from their hormones. We want to make sure that's resolved.
Great analogy.
Okay. Excellent. Oh, so Tobias writes in, she's extremely athletic and fit. So of course, my biggest thing is excessive exercise can be a
Yep.
driving factor of hormone issues. Not eating enough calories and or not getting enough high quality fats or proteins. Like I said, the diet's really important too.
Yeah, we work with a lot of women and their periods have stopped due to their excess training. We've had a lot of CrossFit burnout victims where the period
Yes.
stops. So, I mean,
Yes.
man, I'm glad you got further intel because that would be a totally plausible mechanism.
Yeah. I mean, as a woman, you can be fit as heck, but if your cycle stopped because of your exercise, your mother nature is telling you that your body is stressed to the point where it is not comfortable bringing life into this world. And that's always the big indicator, like how healthy you are. Typically, during cycling years is going to be indexed upon fertility. And it's hard too because a lot of women are healthy, but they just get exposed to things in the environment that can have an implication like toxins or pesticides. So it's not just all what you do. Sometimes the environment can have implications there too.
Yep, well said.
Cool. Well, today was a great show. We appreciate your guys' feedback and thumbs up. And give us a share, give us the subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and we look forward to chatting with you very soon.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Evan, take care. Bye.